9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Man, has it been a long time since I've done this. Let's just get right into it. Welcome to the revolution. What's up, everyone? Welcome to the Derek O'Shea Show. It's been so long since I've done a live stream. I mean, seriously, it's been a very, very long time. I've been very busy, and I thought, you know what? I wanted to watch a couple of these videos online. I'm not sure who's going to pop in, but I'm going to play a little NBA Jam, but also show some clips from today because, I mean, you know, per usual, today's news was just full of silliness. I mean, we can get started with this one right out of the gate as the border protection guys, the old, the ones that everyone's freaking out, saying they were whipping people. But here we go.
Given the very strong statements that the president and the vice president.
Oh, let's start with this clip first. Sorry, this is the CBP talking about what they're gonna do to those boys who are running around just with reins. But you know how the corporate media works.
OPR investigators determined that the agents involved in the Del Rio activity were not carrying whips. The third area focused on...
Which is incredible because for so long, so many in the corporate media were talking about how it reminded them of slavery and stuff like that. And like, you're just fabricating stuff in your head. You're making it up as you go. You're creating an entire narrative out of emotion. You're not actually providing any facts. You're just saying useless stuff. And that's what so much goes on in corporate media today. But let's continue listening.
The individual actions of the agents. Despite initial appearances, after a careful review and analysis of videos, photos, and eyewitness accounts, this included an interview with a photographer on the scene and other members of the media, OPR found no evidence Border Patrol agents involved in this incident struck any person with their reins intentionally or otherwise. OPR investigators...
Intentionally or unintentionally? God, that's so crazy. And for so long on the media, they use that as a method in which to talk about racist white people. It's just... If you're not at this point in your life where you take literally everything you find on the internet and in corporate media with a grain of salt and look it up for information yourself, I don't know what to tell you. It's just, we live in a crazy time. And then this same guy gets asked this question, which is great, and his response to it is just fantastic.
I wanted to ask, given the very strong statements that the president and the vice president said at the time of this incident, including the president's promise that the agents would be punished, how is it possible for the OPR to conduct an independent investigation? Was there any? Did they come under any pressure from these statements?
So let me frame it a minute like this. I've been a police chief over the last 20-some years, and during that time, have certainly dealt with many high-profile controversies, incidents, things involving my officers that didn't look great initially. And it was inevitable, certainly not surprising, that there was going to be a reaction to that from the community, from those in the media, from elected officials, from different advocacy groups. Not at all surprising.
So much of what goes on in politics is literally down to how loud can the people complaining about no action or whatever, or action, be factored in. You know, it's just politics, corporate media, corporate news. It's just what group of children are the loudest, and that's who they listen to at this point. That's what it feels like to me. I don't know. Changed my mind. But then we get to this. This right here is incredible. We will never forget the day that Joe Biden got in the office, and we've gotten so many good gaffes out of him. Here's
10
one.
years old, and she was forced to have to travel out of the state to Indiana to seek to terminate the presidency and maybe save her life.
Oh, the old terminate the presidency. You know, and the same people will try to cover for him. He didn't say presidency.
Out of the state to Indiana to seek to terminate the presidency and maybe save.
And again, you know, SNL, nothing funny here. Joe Biden is the most straightforward president we've ever had. He's incredible at every juncture. If you say otherwise, it's because you're a white supremacist. All right, let's get into some interesting stories. I saw this story, and, you know, some of my viewers, not a big fans of Vice, but they're hit and miss for me. But this is a story on China's impact in South America, which I find is interesting. I'm just going to play a little NBA Jam. Feel free to comment, chat in with me. If you want to support me, go to buymeacoffee.com/Derek Show. Link is in the description below. I'd greatly appreciate it. Your chat gets read up on the screen and all that stuff. I hope you're having a great Friday. I love you. Thanks for hanging out with me. Let's watch this.
So I've been driving for a while, and this is just like a massive expanse of land that has been mined out and is still being mined. You can see a lot of workers are still operating here. Most of these people are actually local Guyanese, but there are more recently some Chinese miners that have come. 你们为什么来到圭亚那做这样的工作？
也就是因为黄金嘛。
Guyana is one of the smallest countries in South America. The largely undeveloped nation is rich with gold, timber, and other natural resources that have attracted foreign investment recently from China.
第四世界国家的资源相对来说充裕一点，每个中国人出来，像我们出来也属于赚外汇嘛。在国外赚钱拿到中国去没。
当地人因为我的工作会有影响吗？
因为首先你不管是谁啊，就是只要是做金的来的，是吧？第一个，他能带动他们当地的正常的一个经济水平啊，越原始越不好嘛。第二个，那对环境肯定是有影响，是吗？就是这个，看他们自己当地人选择哪个呗。反正是早晚都得有人做这件事儿。
Drawing isn't what you do; it's part of who you are.
Is there anything worse than
At Craftsy,
freaking
we
commercials?
understand that making art is a way.
China's growing presence in Guyana is part of its increased investment in Latin America and the Caribbean. Last year, China's investment and construction projects in the region neared $16 billion, a fourfold increase since 2005. In that time, Chinese state banks have also loaned over $130 billion to governments in the region. Loans that often fund infrastructure projects run by Chinese state-owned enterprises. Much of this investment comes through China's Belt and Road Initiative, an ambitious push to bring development funding and soft power influence around the globe. In Guyana, one of the flagship infrastructure projects is a hydroelectric power plant to be built deep in the rainforest. We flew over the site with land rights activist Michael McGarrell, who travels across the country mapping threats to indigenous territories.
So that's the road that leads to the hydro project site.
So this is where they're going to be building a hydroelectric plant.
Yes.
And it's the Chinese that are building this, right?
Yes, the Chinese are the ones who build this. It's going to flood large swaths of lands. The biodiversity that lives in this area will die. Indigenous peoples, we hunt and we fish in this area. I mean, building a hydro dam will decimate that.
Guyana's largely intact rainforest operates as a crucial carbon sink, capturing more carbon dioxide than the nation emits. Keeping it intact is crucial not just for the tribes who live here, but also for alleviating the effects of climate change around the world. Miguel brought us to the village of Morowa, where members of the Patamona tribe are fighting to get legal recognition of their lands.
We want a land title so that not any company could come in and say, oh, this is our black or this, because it belongs to us. We the people, the first people of this country, it belongs to us. Not from a company from China, not from America.
But companies are staking claims, including a Chinese timber operation and license holders for mining gold.
On my GPS here, I can see the mining concessions around Morowa. Yeah.
Oh, wow. So we're actually in the middle of a lot of, we're surrounded by mining concessions here. Does that mean at some point there will be mining happening?
Yes, there will be at some point.
Is it not inevitable that as Guyana's opening up, this way of life and indigenous peoples' communities are going to change?
Yes, things are changing. The world is moving on. But we must determine that rate of change.
Guyana is changing faster than McGarrell would like. A huge discovery of oil has transformed Guyana's economy into one of the fastest growing in the world. China is poised to cash in, not just from its 25% stake in oil reserves, but by funding the roads, hotels, and other infrastructure needed to fuel that growth. But there are concerns that China, with its outsized influence, could unfairly benefit from the country's rapid ascent, leaving Guyanese citizens behind. Chinese infrastructure spending in other developing nations has been criticized as opaque and a way of propping up corrupt regimes. We wanted to see if Guyana's development is being fueled by corruption. So we switched to
Of course it's being fueled by corruption. I mean, what? What kind of non-corrupt government? I mean, can you imagine being a legitimate government and wanting China to come in and be your world savior for creating jobs and everything in your country and trying to be legit? I mean, it's just so silly.
hidden cameras.
So I'm going to be filming Undercover with my Chinese friend who does not want to go on camera for obvious reasons. He's going to be posing as a successful Chinese business person. I'm going to be posing as his secretary, and we're going to be trying to uncover how the Chinese are doing business with Guyana's government.
Hello.
Hello.
Me and my colleague, who we'll call Mr. Chan, presented ourselves as investors, looking to get involved in mining, logging, and construction. We spent weeks working our way into elite business circles and captured conversations we wouldn't normally have heard. Eventually, we were welcomed to a private country retreat where we met influential business people, including one timber exporter who offered us advice on how to best work the system.
Everything under table. 反正这种国家都是这样的，最怕的不贪，你贪就好了。
跟谁的关系是最重要的？总统还是？
怎么讲呢？你和副总统关系好的，基本上没问题的。你不要总统啊，副总统你就什么那个打招呼啊，打电话。我都唔驚啦你。
The person we're told we need on our side is Vice President Bharat Jagdeo, arguably the most powerful politician in the country. He spent 12 years as president and still pulls huge political weight. Outside Guyana, he's been heralded as a climate hero, promising to keep his country green even as it drills for oil. We're told that the person who can get us in the room with him is a man named Su Zhurong. Mr. Su is a long-time Guyana resident. He's one of the country's biggest landholders in timber and mining, with stakes in the fuel industry as well. Because of concerns over COVID, Su kept his distance, but he was still eager to meet with new investors. Su openly bragged about his influence with the vice president, who owns the house Su lives in, and whom Su refers to as his boss. And Su says he can help us in Guyana for the right price. Su's not the only person to tell us that the service fees these middlemen take are essentially bribes for big deals.
顾问费，就是用这个顾问费做的事情。就放到那个里面去。对对对，因为他不需要什么实际上的顾问，就是这个名的这么发运行。
This is a general manager of China's largest state-run construction firm, who confirmed that companies use middlemen to pay these bribes.
Of course they do. 发挥了极其关键的作用，就像那种他一句话，这个事儿就办了，他不发话，谁都办不了。
It's companies like the one he works for, linked directly to the Chinese Communist Party, who win a lot of Guyana's largest government contracts.
This guy works for one of the biggest state-run organisations, and the way that they're seeming to do business here is also very much under the table. It does imply very much that the Beijing authorities know exactly what's going on.
This is Webflow. Meet the design tool from the future, the most powerful visual coding tool.
Later, Su showed us evidence of his own involvement in multi-million-dollar deals between Guyana's government and a large Chinese state-run corporation, including a contract for his work as an agent on a big road project, and letters sent from the government about the same hydropower plant we flew over in the rainforest. For our deal, Mr. Su painted us a wide range of investment opportunities: logging rights, a stone quarry, gold mining, and the most promising of all, land in a prime location where a hotel and casino could be built to cash in on the oil boom. Su says the money we pay him, under the guise of legitimate business, will actually make it to the vice president.
咁領到嗰度係擺落邊個戶口度啊？即係轉落邊？
我到咗嗰日啦，我會攞現金俾佢，同埋咧領導方面呢邊要錢手續咧一定要完善，不管任何人都冇權力去刁難我哋嘅。
Before we could pay Su and the vice president, we would need a way to get large sums of money into the country. We told Su that, like other companies he does business with, our capital is tied up in China, and China has strict controls over sending money abroad. We'd need a workaround.
So there's been a lot of hints throughout our time here that the way that foreign companies are normally getting money into the country is through different money launderers that operate here. So we've managed to get hold of a couple of those guys who say that they are able to transfer huge sums of money into the country.
Through Bitcoin?
是所有的中国人在这边做生意看中，我们是面对这所有的中国人。比如说，有的费用啊给总统啊，有的费用给那些当地的官啊，比如说多少钱啊。 他那一部分的钱就是从我们这种方式给他的。
那这么多钱搞过来的话，就是一般这边的操作方法是什么？
这个很简单，但是我们是避开中国那种他那一套。
This man told us he works with a team to transfer huge sums of cash, both for private clients and Chinese state-controlled companies. He says he's personally delivered cash directly to government officials.
你打人民币给我，我明天就可以拿现金。
Never win.
这么快啊！真的。
因为这边的行情，你知道疫情， 有时候我们一天最多提供30到40万大美金。
$400,000 a day.
每天可以30
Oh my god.
The way he does this is called flying money in Chinese. Money is placed in a bank account in China. The equivalent amount, minus a hefty fee, is taken out in Guyana, getting around taxes and border restrictions.
你的钱是怎么样的？跟我说怎么样？他们说白粉钱就白粉，一个做法。黑钱，中国那些贪官那些钱，黑钱，见不了光的，给现金的，又一种做法。
And if it's dirty money, as you say, 黑钱, what's the solution for that?
现金的话，现在按照现在还会20%。
说是，可是这样会有问题啊，因为20%的手续费收下来。
你账户，你摆明你这个是有跟政府有一点矛盾的，就是这个钱还会做人啊。
With our access to cash secured, we move forward with the deal.
Oh, here's a matchup
As a
from the
final
90s.
step, Sue took our colleague, Mr. Chan, next door to meet the Vice President himself.
Thank you so much for seeing me.
Yeah, please have a seat.
Jagdo avoided talking specifics, but told us how close he is to Sue.
Do you understand our deal in detail?
No, I'm not getting involved in business. You will get the support. Sue is my friend. He gets all the support.
We have to be clear about all the agreements.
Sue deals with all the agreements. I don't.
I understand.
The thing is that my thing is that I'm in government.
I understand.
So I assist from government side.
I know.
That's it.
Sue interjected, telling Mr. Chan this wasn't the place to talk about the bribe.
因為佢由頭都係啦，即係我要知道，即係啲錢係入咗佢嗰度先得㗎。如果唔係 ，Okay, thank you so much for giving me time. I hope I can see you again.
Yes, definitely.
Thank you.
佢隻手永遠係好乾淨，冇話呢啲石油公司咁大筆數，都唔係好似幾千萬美金，水電站咁。
Tens of millions of dollars. Never admit he's involved in this. And this is like sketchy, damn it.
Personal profit isn't the only thing at stake here. China's expansion in South America has set off alarms in the US, which has long held political dominance in the region.
China has an overall goal to become the wealthiest country in the world and the most powerful country in the world. That's not going to happen on my watch.
New from Nutrisystem. Lose weight eating our biggest, heartiest, and most...
Oh, that was like freaking famous last words right there. Oh my god. Yeah, totally.
Biden and G7 leaders recently pledged hundreds of billions of dollars in global infrastructure funding,
which is awesome.
A direct counter to China's Belt and Road.
Period.
One fear is that generous Chinese funding comes with geopolitical strings attached. And last year, that seemed to ring true, when Guyana made a policy decision that many saw as a direct result of pressure from China. The island of Taiwan, which China claims as its own, announced it was opening a trade office in Guyana. The US applauded the move. But only hours later, Guyana pulled out of the agreement. One of our business associates, who has close ties with the Chinese embassy, told us that the reason Guyana pulled out was because of Chinese funding.
中國政府一抗議咧，過咗係好似係幾個鐘頭。 外交部就即刻宣布呢個係謠言，係唔屬實嘅。我哋冇同台灣建立任何關係，我們沒有跟台灣建立外交部宣布 One China policy. There's no possibility for Taiwan to have any office in there. 即刻咧，立刻馬上過了幾天，中國就跟互相領導人通電話， 就第一期贷款给圭亚那15个亿美金，所以说好了，毛毛你。
It wasn't until months after our conversation that talk of a $1.5 billion loan made the news, suggesting that our contact did have inside knowledge about what went down. When reached my phone recently, he said he didn't remember ever saying this. Vice President Jagdeo said no loan was made and that China had never pressured them over Taiwan or any other issue.
No financing from anybody comes with political strings.
A few months later, we confronted the vice president about whether the massive influx in foreign investment is plagued by corruption and if he himself has a part to play in that.
You know, Guyana has attracted a lot of foreign investment recently. What is it that Guyana has to offer?
The opportunity to make money. That is why people are coming here. So that's what I'm going to say.
Some of the biggest infrastructure projects you have are being built by Chinese state-run companies. Given the contentious issues between the US and China, does it ever feel like Guyana is being used as a pawn within these two global superpowers?
I don't think we're such a big player to have the arrogance to think that we're so important to the two parties to be used as a pawn. I think we're just a small country trying to do the best for our people.
I mean, this year, Guyana dropped 2 points on the Transparency International's Corruption Perception Index, which puts it among the most corrupt in the region. Do you accept that within this government and within this country there is a problem with corruption?
First of all, I have a problem with the indices, but we do have real corruption in countries like ours too. This is like a blackness index. The darker you are, the lower you are on the index. The developed countries hardly ever get on this index. And they have more institutional corruption, in my view.
What about within your government? Do you accept bribes?
Now there is a bit slap of truth.
You know, we've spoken to a number of Chinese business people in Guyana who said that you do accept bribes, and they have said that, in fact, it's the only way to get business done.
Yeah, well, I can't comment on that. You can just sit there and fabricate that. Unless you say who the person is, I can't comment on anonymous people.
Okay, well, let's talk about specific individuals. What is your relationship with Mr. Su Zhirong?
Su? Oh, Su? My relationship? Nothing. He's a tenant in my place, yeah.
And he's a good friend of yours?
Yes, he is a friend of ours.
He claims that through his very close relationship with you, that he's able to get any deal done.
Well, I don't...
Do you use middlemen like Sue in order to take money on your behalf so that you can keep your hands clean?
No. The answer is no.
We met with a manager from a Chinese state-run corporation who confirmed that they use individuals like Sue in order to get these deals done, and that they pay them a consulting fee, which essentially serves as a bribe to individuals like you. I mean, what would you say to that?
Well, I don't know, because again, that's all, you're building everything on what you have met and what people told you. I don't know. I can't comment on some anonymous manager now telling you something.
I mean, these are individuals who have significant business interests in this country. So
why do you think, yes, but why do you think?
So many people are telling us one thing about, this is the way that deals get done.
But it
I'm wondering what your take is.
But you know, when the reporters come from abroad, this is their catch you kind of thing. You always want to make a developing country leader look corrupt. So you've done your bit.
Will you investigate at least, these
No, definitely. I'm going to ask about all of this, but I can't comment reasonably. How can I comment on these issues?
A few days after meeting with us, Jagdeo released our interview to the press, seemingly to get ahead of the onslaught of public reactions.
These are Bird Dog's shorts. They've got a built-in liner, so no more riding up.
Guyana's president leapt to Jagdeo's defense.
I heard that the reporter had certain special interests.
Neither the timber exporter we spoke to nor the Chinese state-run firms mentioned in this piece responded to our questions. But in a statement, the Chinese embassy called our reporting false and said all Chinese companies operating in Guyana follow local laws and international practices. Su also claimed he'd never said this and released a statement saying that he'd never acted on behalf of any government official or promised any favor or business-related reward. Since our interview, negotiations over the contract to build the hydroelectric power plant, which Su said he was involved in brokering, have stalled. And the vice president now says he plans to take legal action against Su for what he told us.
I'm going to take reputational action. I'm going to sue him. And I'm looking to him to throw him out, looking for him. Can't find him so far, but as soon as I find him, this will happen.
But others have called for Jagdeo himself to be investigated.
The opposition believes that VP Jagdeo should do the decent thing and resign to facilitate an unbiased investigation.
And the people of Guyana, they're still left with questions about who gets to buy their country and for what price.
Somebody may be making corrupt deals to give away our lands, basically, because we're not benefiting from it.
But we will not give up because we see that the system has been designed in such a way that it goes against what we're trying to do. We will continue to struggle for our lands. It is not for us now, but we have to think for our children, our grandchildren, those who come after us.
I'm Michael Learmonth, editor-in-chief of Vice News. Too often, traditional...
That was kind of crazy. China's presence in South America is just continuing to grow, and everyone's just winking and nodding about it. I want to hear the Blaze conversation regarding the shooter in Illinois. I feel like my camera's being weird. Let's get a little refresher. Cool. Cool. All right, I want to hear this.
They stay in. I do it to work out. I'm jumping all around. I'm doing stupid burpees, which I hate. And Coach Brian, screw you for making me do burpees, but my Raycons stay in. So.
That's impressive.
Yeah, I know. Plus, they give you 8 hours of playtime and a 32-hour battery life. You're going to get the same quality audio as other premium audio. Police pulled him over after a brief chase, took him into custody, and they...
I'm curious of kind of some of the conservative pundits, what their ideas of... I think people are more obsessed with putting this Illinois shooter in whatever box they can, so they emotionally are like more comfortable with their own ideology. Like, it's so silly to take in somebody who's completely insane and then try to create a narrative for yourself, saying that this guy is obviously this, so therefore he's that. And I mean, you're seeing politicians talk about how this guy's a Trump supporter, and you're seeing conservatives on the other side saying there's no way he's a Trump supporter. And it's just such a silly argument when it's just, how about this guy is just insane? He was a loner. He had no friends. He had no community around him. His parents were enablers. I mean, there's like so many things that you could add to the list of what's going on in this kid's life, but typical politicians and politics, we're just trying to put him in a little box. You're like, he kind of looked like Antifa, so he's probably a liberal. Like, really? That's as far as we're gonna go. But I'm gonna keep I'm gonna see what they have to say. We'll critique it as we go. I'm gonna keep playing. I suck at NBA Jam. You can tell how much I never play this game.
They said that the suspect used at least one legally purchased firearm in the attack, which of course was, I mentioned Highland Park. This is like a wealthy suburb of Chicago, so it's right outside Chicago. And he fired 70 rounds into the crowd while dressed in a woman's clothing to conceal himself. He was also wearing an American flag patterned gator mask. And he allegedly dropped an AR-15 style rifle at the scene, blended in with the crowd to flee to his mother's house, where he, of course, then proceeded to get in her car.
I hate when people even use the term AR-15 style. It's just like, you're just reading, you're winking and nodding at the other side, or leftists or liberals that have no idea what these weapons are. And so they use these words to create an emotional trigger within yourself and within within themselves so that like they can categorize them, just like we're doing with this kid. So it's just so silly. Just say you don't like any gun. I mean, I'd rather you say that than weapons of war. The idea that in every single weapon is a weapon of war. That's the whole point of a weapon.
Where he was found and evaded capture for the next few hours. And, it's been very interesting to kind of see everything come out about him. The most, I would say, frustrating part of watching all of this transpire is the quickness in which social media shuts down all of these accounts so that nobody has access to find information out about this person. Now, if we had a true free press and we had people who reported things accurately and we had people who were not trying to drive a narrative, such as what I've been hearing, which is, I guess there was a picture of him at a Trump rally where he was wearing a Where's Waldo costume. Seems a little odd to me. I don't know why you would do that if you were there to support
Trump. This kid just sounds
Trump.
like a guy that
but
trolls.
now they're like, look, he was a MAGA extremist. He was a Trump supporter. This is why he did it. All of these crazy conspiracy theories. It'd be nice if we had a media who really just reported on things and could go through this stuff and tell us what we needed to know, but we don't. And then we have social media companies who obviously also don't want you to get the truth if it drives the wrong narrative. And so then they just remove everything. So nobody can find out information about this guy. And it just really is frustrating because I never feel like we're being told the full story. Because if we were being told the full story, why would they be so quick to just delete his entire life from the internet so that nobody else could?
I mean, that's such a silly. I understand the sentiment behind that thought process, but when you're under investigation, I'm sure they're deleting everything in case they have to use jurors, right? I mean, I don't know. We're all pundits.
Find out anything. Again, I understand police want to have the opportunity to go through things. I understand if there's an active investigation, but everything that he said was already publicly available information. It just seems odd that you would want it to just so quickly disappear from the internet.
It's an interesting point. I never thought of that before. Yeah.
What would you have to hide at this point?
Yeah, I mean, I think usually they don't want the person to get more attention, right? Like a lot of times they post this stuff up to get attention. They don't want to, they could be making threats in these videos, and they want to. They usually do pull these things down, but I hadn't really thought of it from that perspective. You're right. You can't trust the media to tell you to distill who this person was, and at the very least, you should be giving this to some conservative media organization so they can also go through it and look at it and double check that work. I mean, it's an interesting point. I mean, I'm glad I saw, some of the headlines that you guys have been posting over here, and that, I'm glad that we blacked out this guy's name. I couldn't even tell you what it is, and I'm glad. We started doing this years ago, and I've noticed this now, where I can remember the places where some of these things happened and some of the details, but I don't know the names anymore of the shooters because I intentionally avoid them, and we never put them on Stu Does America. We never put them on the radio program. I know you don't put them on here. The Blaze, we stopped doing that. And so often that is the reason. This type of crime is a crime of spectacle. It's done to get attention, right? You can do these things without the spectacle in a million different ways. They want to do it when the phones are pointed toward a parade. They want to get this attention. And the more that we give it to them, the more that we obsess about this stuff, the worse it gets. And, look, you can look at the facts about gun violence. This is a very tiny slice of violence. You could eliminate mass shootings forever, and it would not do much damage at all. It wouldn't make much difference. It is a terrible, terrible thing, and if you're one of the people who was involved in it, it's not going to make you feel any better that it's rare, but it is incredibly rare. And you should probably live your life as if this is never going to happen to you, because thankfully it probably won't.
Yeah, so there's so much to say here, and I love where Sarah's going with this for this reason. He had multiple accounts on YouTube, and they were up for a long time, yet conservative voices are being censored. He has a mural on the back wall of his family. There's a mural, okay? His father
That's not creepy.
His father goes, well, he's just expressing art. Now, this makes you ask serious questions of your son, number one.
Wow.
Secondly...
Hold on. For those of you who are just listening on podcasts, this is a mural of it's like a man, but it's just a smiley face, like almost emoji as the head, and very clearly holding a rifle.
Yeah, it's just weird. If a kid, it's on his side. If a kid had to draw that in the classroom, the teacher should immediately say, listen, what's up? And then we ask young kids to draw often, because a lot comes out in your drawing. Well, now look at this. This is on his Twitter account. This was up for a long time. So now here comes Yaku saying, okay, FBI, where are you? You're censoring conservative voices. We can't say a man is a man and a woman is a woman.
Dave Rubin is suspended now from Twitter.
But this dude, Jordan Peterson, right? But this guy can have this kind of stuff up to 4 months, and it's not censored. The FBI doesn't go out to his house. Then when he commits the crime, they pull it. Why? Because they don't want the people to know that they dropped the ball, that they allowed someone who is obviously mentally ill, who posted about it, who's talking about being a sleepwalking person like a zombie. I won't even be able to think, oh, by the way, as I've told you before, every single mass shooter in American history was also a porn addict. And there's the sex doll. He's got sex dolls.
What? Is that a fact? I mean, how do you just say that? God. How do you know that? It just seems a little bit hyperbolic or over the top and over emotional, and I can't tell if I can take that guy seriously or not. It's kind of the same argument with SSRIs with school shootings. Like, I just don't. I'm curious. I wish they were more honest about some of that, because then we could actually have a conversation where, if they are prescribed, are they still taking it while it happens? Do they decide that they don't want to take it anymore and thus creates the monster? Or are they taking it while doing it? Like, that's the kind of stuff I want to know. Just because they're prescribed it doesn't mean they're actually taking it. I know a lot of people that are prescribed stuff they don't take. Or decide, I'm going to be my own doctor and I'll decide when I'm going to stop. So I'm just curious about all that stuff. Yeah. And I will call out the Blaze when I just feel like they're being a little too silly.
The perversion is always included. There were signs galore for a long time that he's an individual that maybe truly needs to have a magnifying glass on him. Not Johnny down the streets that says, I like President Trump, or a man is a man and a woman is a woman.
Right. Yeah, it is frustrating because every time this happens, we talk about more red flag laws when it's like, well, it feels a whole lot like the red flags that you guys already have put into place. You guys just failed to follow through on.
Yeah.
So why do we need So why do we need more red flag laws for some scorned ex-lover to go and try to get revenge on you and get your guns taken and abuse that, rather than just why have more laws that the bureaucracy is just going to fail to follow through on? Yeah,
I mean, this one obviously there seems to be all sorts of stuff that would indicate this kid could be a problem. Now, it is difficult in our country, right? Because we are a country that doesn't put people behind bars because they make a crazy song or they have a crazy painting, and so it's difficult to enforce this stuff if they don't commit a crime.
Exactly. I'm glad he's at least on that side, because I'm like, just because your art is aggressive or horrifying in nature doesn't make you a school shooter immediately or a parade shooter or whatever. Like, just because it's weird for you, I don't know. I'm always hesitant to red flag laws and all these quote unquote signs. Maybe some are more genuine, because then we're getting into the Minority Report kind of stuff where it's like, we need to arrest people before they actually commit a crime because they're weird.
We're not China, right? We don't just throw people
But we put them in bars for being in the wrong city on the wrong day in January.
Right. And I mean, the hypocrisy here is clear, right? Yeah. What you're enforcing online is completely ridiculous, and there's a lot of stuff you can do here. I think you look at this though, mass shootings is such a tough story because you have school shootings, for example. There's 150,000 schools in the United States. They all go to school 180 days per year. That's a lot of area to defend. Mm-hmm. It's difficult to defend. There's a lot of kids out there that are weird and twisted and have problems and are depressed and all these things. It's really hard to defend. if you took more steps on things like, for example, suicide, which is half of gun crime, and also has a good chunk of overlap with these types of kids.
No, for sure.
That would help. Where passing a new gun law to I don't know, limit future purchases.
It will do zero,
it does nothing.
It will do zero. But remember how this works, and I want America to understand. There are real people at Twitter, at Instagram, at Facebook that monitor content. Now, they see child porn and they go, that's okay. They see crazy Johnny here stabbing people and they go, that's okay. But you're a conservative voice, you're a Christian, we have to target. They're investing billions of dollars to monitor conservative voices.
Yeah.
They've seen this. They saw this content, at least to the degree of, hey, guys, maybe we need to help this child.
Yeah.
Maybe we need to reach out in a way, right? So it's not like the dollars aren't already being spent looking. They're looking at everything we do.
Which is why I don't trust when they just make it all disappear very quickly.
Yeah. Right.
Like, I just don't trust that. I want to be able to look at it for myself. All right, we've got more to come, but first we want to thank our sponsor, Keeps. So 2 out of 3 guys actually experience hair loss.
All right, so that was it. All right, that was just silly. Okay, I'm interested in these gun laws in Japan.
Japan is in shock over the assassination of former Prime Minister Shinzo Abe. A gunman shot Abe as he was giving a campaign speech. He later died at the hospital. The suspect was quickly arrested.
Ian Overton joins us now. He's an executive director of Action on Armed Violence. Ian, welcome. Thank you for being with us. So this assassination of former Japanese Prime Minister Shinzo Abe is so just surprising and, not necessarily unprecedented. We know a Prime Minister of Japan has been shot before back in the 30s, but it is certainly shocking because gun violence in Japan is exceedingly rare.
Absolutely. In 2018, there was just one person shot and killed in Japan in a homicide involving a firearm. So it's more than rare. It's almost unheard of. And there are actually Japanese people who have never actually seen a gun up close in their lives. This was even reported to the US Senate in an international review of guns. And the concept of a major political figure being attacked alone would be shocking because violence itself is rare in Japan. But using a gun would be just beyond the imaginings of many Japanese. And I think that this will be something debated at length for many months, if not years to come.
You told the BBC back in 2017 that Japan was, quote, the first nation to impose gun laws in the whole world. So has Japan historically succeeded in implementing stringent gun control legislation? And what effect has that had on residents' perception of firearms?
Yes, so in the 16th century, Toyotomi introduced what it was called the sword hunt, and that led to a lot of people going through the country collecting what was seen as illicit swords and illicit firearms. This was relatively soon after firearms began to be obtainable in Japan. Now, hitherto, there had been city-states that had imposed some form of gun control in Europe, but nothing on a nationwide level as we saw in Japan. And in successive centuries, we saw more and more layers of forms of gun control taking effect. And right up till the post-war years of 1945, 1946, you saw some very stringent gun laws coming into place. And today, if you apply for a gun certificate in Japan, you have to submit 13 separate forms of identification and verification in order to obtain, at most, a hunting license.
Wow.
But we've seen gun ownership.
They're just like lusting after how hard it is to get a weapon in Japan. They're like, oh my God, 13 things. That's amazing.
In Japan fall hugely over the last few years.
It's so interesting to hear that, the difference between the gun laws in one country versus, for instance, our country.
And how that impacts safety and
absolutely.
Safety, because it's all about safety. It's not about actual freedom or authoritarian government or or anything like that. It's about your safety.
Deaths and such.
And Ian, of course, I mean, we can assume that Abe's assassination, as shocking as it is, will somehow change Japan. We don't yet know how, but knowing Japanese culture the way you do, what do you think the official response to his death will be? Do you believe that they will enforce even stricter gun laws, and what might those look like?
Well, what we do know is it appears to be been a homemade gun. So I think that there's going to be a lot of debate around how did he get the component parts for it and where did the information come from. I think there'll be more focus, though, on where did the bullets come from. If the bullets have been home manufactured, there'll be a debate around that. If they had been bought, we may even see more stringent laws coming into place in terms of the ownership of bullets. Experts I've spoken to in the police in the UK, where we do have quite strong gun laws as well, say that it's not always the gun that's the problem, it's the criminals getting hold of the bullets that poses the greatest threat to gangs wanting to use gun violence.
And that's always been my thing, is that they're going to eventually come after the bullets. They're not going to go after
I
guns.
think that there will be a debate around this, but I think there'll also be a wider debate about politician safety. You heard in your previous segment from your...
Oh, I can't do it anymore. All right, I want to see this, and then I'm going to call it a day. But Vice is talking about the replacement conspiracy theory that's causing mass shootings. Like, again, the liberals, the leftists are doing the same thing what the Blaze was doing. They're trying to put this shooter in a category so that they can have an enemy to go after, as opposed to it being a lone wolf person who's wanting to commit acts of evil. They don't like that idea that someone could just snap. He was, groomed by Trump supporters or groomed by these people just make up stuff. But let's listen to. I'm curious what they have to say.
In May 2022, a domestic terrorist murdered 10 black people at a supermarket in Buffalo, New York.
The alleged shooter wearing full body armor and tactical gear, targeting people of color.
This is an absolute racist hate crime.
They're reviewing a 180-page manifesto reportedly written by the shooter, where he describes his perceptions about the dwindling size of the white population.
The attack was followed by the depressingly familiar round of platitudes about thoughts and prayers, as well as the usual series of arguments and evasions around gun control in America.
The 18-year-old terrorist who stormed into my community armed with an AR-15, killing 10 people and injuring 3 others, received a shotgun from his parents for his 16th birthday.
In rural Colorado, an AR-15 is a gun of choice for killing raccoons before they get to our chickens.
But what's often been missing from the discussion around this shooting is how it neatly fits into a pattern of white supremacist terror attacks directly inspired by the Christchurch mosque massacres of 2019. This is how racist conspiracy theory and emerging tech platforms have combined to create the template for a chilling new form of gamified, live-streamed far-right terror.
And this morning, we're getting an exclusive look at the moment the shooter was arrested and the warning signs that were missed.
Investigators are going to be pouring through multiple online posts that this alleged shooter made.
Before his attack, the Buffalo shooter released a manifesto on Discord, largely centered around a conspiracy theory known as the Great Replacement, a fantasist notion that there's a shadowy plot to replace white people in Europe and the US with non-white immigrants.
Forced mass immigration, population replacement,
I swear, if they use like a clip from Tucker or something, I'm gonna listen.
diversity quotas, and lies about white privilege and how only white people can be racist.
Obvious truths about the ongoing program of genocide against my race.
Predictably, the people supposedly running this plot are the Jews.
Jews will not replace us! Jews will not replace us!
The Great Replacement conspiracy theory has been doing the round since around 1916, when it was proposed by the American lawyer and eugenicist Madison Grant. It resurfaced in the 1970s with the neo-Nazi David Lane, who was eventually imprisoned and charged with participating in the assassination of a Jewish radio host. But in its modern form, Great Replacement theory was popularized by the French white supremacist Renaud Camus.
Well, I think there is an invasion. I think there is a colonization. Europe is colonized by Africa in a much more deeper way that Europe ever colonized Africa.
If you look at the kind of surge in popularity of Great Replacement theory, it's really in the 2010s, and it's really, really important to localize that to fringe internet culture, where these same ideas can gather speed, gather velocity, and gather popularity, and then spread from there to more mainstream spaces.
In 2011, these ideas fueled one of the world's deadliest ever white supremacist terror attacks.
3:26 p.m., a massive car bomb shatters downtown Oslo. The target, the Prime Minister's office. But this horror is only beginning.
When a far-right extremist named Anders Behring Breivik murdered 77 people in Norway, the vast majority of them children at a summer camp.
A television helicopter caught the gunman in the act. Bodies laying all around him, children in the water, their hands in the air.
Has said he wanted to start a revolution. The man who confessed to the horrific massacre.
Breivik, who was obsessed with the idea that white Europeans were being replaced, intended for the attack to inspire other right-wing extremists to rise up and follow in his path.
Hours before his murderous rampage, he posted this disturbing video and 1,500-page manifesto online, calling on European right-wingers to embrace martyrdom.
These were attacks on the...
You know, like, this idea that there is, like, white supremacists everywhere I go is just so weird. I've never met one. I've lived all over around the country. But, you know, they're just so quick to jump the gun. Why can't this just be somebody who's insane, wants to commit acts of evil, and is looking for an excuse, and his excuse is you fill in the blank? You know, they're just, like, so quick to immediately put a category. Even if this guy is a freaking total racist, like, and I'm sure he is, like, he's also probably a little bit insane, probably a little bit, like, there's probably a lot of other things, but instead they're just, you know, writing it off. It's because it's easier. It fits the narrative. It fits their person. And so they're creating this whole story off of the 3 events: Christchurch, probably Charleston, South Carolina, Norway, and then that Buffalo shooter, which is a lot, and it's scary, but, like, it's not, like, so prevalent everywhere you go. We need to worry about that. There's crime that happens every single weekend that they refuse to talk about.
Children of a liberal political party in Norway, as well as a bombing in Oslo. These were attacks not on immigrants. These were not attacks on refugees. He wanted to strike out at what he viewed as the people related to this political power that he felt was responsible for destroying Norway.
But Breivik's actions didn't have the effect he wanted. Even for hardcore neo-Nazis, the mass murder of school children, most of them white, wasn't something they could get behind.
This terrorist attack was not something that was widely adopted by the European far right.
But one man would eventually follow Breivik's lead.
Running while black is not running from anything. It's pushing forward, having everything. Communal. Powerful. We represent.
Look at Don. Such a silly commercial.
Police in New Zealand are urging people to stay off the streets and to avoid mosques in the coming hours.
41 killed in one location alone, 7 at another mosque, and 1 person dying in hospital.
The man who is claiming responsibility and charged with murder is an extreme right-wing white supremacist.
Nearly 9 years later, an Australian white supremacist named Brenton Tarrant carried out a devastating Islamophobic terror attack, murdering 51 worshippers at 2 mosques in Christchurch, New Zealand.
You know, the blood is spitting on me, splashing on me, and I'm thinking, oh my God, it's going to happen to me now. But fortunately, I'm alive.
Tarrant explicitly modeled himself on Breivik, citing him in his manifesto as his true inspiration, and sharing his delusional self-image of being a kind of medieval knight fighting to defend European civilization.
Police recovered automatic weapons,
In a horrifying twist, they say the man streamed his massacre live from a body camera and left a long anti-immigrant document.
He live streamed his attack. He turned it into this very horrific visual event. His manifesto was spread in a specific way online where he referenced memes, where he referenced sort of the internet culture he was a part of and came out of. The key difference here is that in 2019, the attack was really...
Do they just like add memes to a reason a school shooter shoot? Like, they just like throw in so much stuff to create a persona to look for.
Made for an internet audience, and that audience was there and receptive to spreading this message in a way that it was not in 2011.
By taking...
So if you like enjoy making comedy art, you're all of a sudden, you should be on a watch list or something because you like memes.
And innovating on Breivik's MO, Tarrant achieved what the Norwegian terrorist had tried and failed to do, to actually inspire a wave of angry young racists to follow him in committing acts of mass murder.
Like Azov Battalion? Hey, don't say that.
Firstly, he chose a different target, singling out the Muslim community that was the object of his hatred, and whose murder was more likely to arouse the race war fantasies of the extremists he wanted to inspire. This was the first time that a terrorist attack had been live streamed in action, creating a devastatingly effective new form of propaganda.
Now, you can't find a single person who's tried to do an act of like right-wing inspired terrorism who hasn't been influenced or doesn't reference Tarrant. It's all Christchurch copycats all the time.
This video shows suspect John Ernest going into the synagogue in April, shooting a woman.
Just 1 month after the Christchurch shooting, a gunman killed one person and injured two others at a synagogue in Poway, California.
Shooting around 11:30 this morning at Chabad of Poway. It's believed there was just one gunman involved. He walked in with a rifle.
He cited Tarrant as an inspiration in a letter posted to 8chan. Then in August 2019, 5 months after Christchurch, shooters in El Paso, Texas, and at a mosque in Bærum, Norway, also carried out attacks after posting online that they were directly inspired by Tarrant.
Investigators say the suspect expressed right-wing and anti-immigrant views online and was inspired by another notorious mosque attack.
On far-right forums, both Breivik and Tarrant have become memes, sometimes pictured as warrior saints or as chads, borrowing imagery from men's rights message boards. Live streams of far-right shootings attract a string of sarcastic inside jokes and shitposting.
50 is a great score, Brenton.
I love you, Brenton. Congratulations, Brenton, on 50 insane kills.
With desensitized commenters talking about a shooter's kill count in real time, as if they were watching a computer game, rather than an act of mass murder.
If you go onto somewhere like 4chan or 8chan or one of the other kinds of image boards where a lot of neo-Nazis hang out, you'll find them saying to would-be terrorists, get the high score. And in fact, they'll create little scoreboards of mass killers.
Despite the devastating...
God, I feel like that has a lot to do with, too, just our culture and their obsession of death, and obsession, suicide, death, and trying to find meaning in life, and kind of like the nihilist, Marxist nihilist ideology of like death is, there's only meaning in death. And so I mean, there's so much to unpack about that. I think it's, again, it's just too easy to say it's just a bunch of racists. It's just... It's like looking at the Highland Park shooter and it's like, oh, this guy went to one Trump rally, ergo he's a MAGA supporter. Oh, this guy has pink hair, therefore he's Antifa. Like, if it's too easy to put people in a box, I think you're just discrediting the capacity of evil that every man can commit, and you're making him to all fit in this box so that people feel comfortable with calling out these things, so they feel like if we can never elect Trump again, they're never going to have shootings again. Or if we just get rid of guns, that people won't be killing each other anymore. Like, it's just, I don't know. I just wish some of these takes were a little bit more nuanced or calling out into question like the SSRIs or family life or school life, or were these people racist, or were they in such need and search for community in their lives that that was the only community they found? Like they're just horrible, evil human beings. How about that too? Like I don't know. Yeah.
Toll of racist conspiracy theories like the Great Replacement, versions of them are seeping into today's polarized political mainstream, being voiced by Republican politicians.
I knew it.
And popular TV pundits.
Oh my God. I was like, oh my God, if they bring up Tucker. Tucker Carlson talks about replacing Americans, not white. But again, it's easier to just put them in a box. And so, just take away everything he says and don't actually think through some of these issues.
The left and all the little gatekeepers on Twitter become literally hysterical if you use the term replacement.
They can't win re-election in 2022 unless they bring in a large number of new voters to replace the voters that are already here. That's what this is about. We have an invasion in this country.
From Christchurch to Buffalo, these sort of shootings present a new form of white supremacist terrorist threat, a uniquely contemporary mix of conspiracist fantasy, nihilistic online shitposting, and depersonalized.
Nihilistic, there it is. What was that? Nihilistic online shitposting. How about we just create a narrative based on that alone and talk about the culture of nihilism and how it's reigning supreme in our culture today and why that's a huge problem. But no, we're going to talk about conservatives, we're going to talk about Republicans, and it always goes back to Tucker in the end for these people. It's just, I wish they would spend more time on discussing what nihilism is and why it seems like our generation, especially the younger generation, is obsessed with it.
And depersonalized mass violence.
When people are being told that their political power, their economic power is being taken away from them by people who are actively trying to disempower them, it's a message that really resonates with a lot of people.
It's decentralized terrorism without a formal group or command and control structure. They're often called lone wolf attacks, but this isn't really accurate. They emerge from a distinct online ecosystem and follow a clear pattern, paying homage to the terrorists who came before them and urging others to follow in their wake.
We can't think of these people as lone wolves or lone actors. We have to think of them as self-initiated terrorists. So someone who went out and decided to do something off the back of the ideology they've imbibed, they act as one node in a network. But you have to understand that there's a huge number of people behind them, behind screens, who are supporting them, endorsing them, egging them on.
It's impossible to say where or when the next...
Yeah, you see it online all the time. People will just egg on stuff or pile on stuff when they feel invincible to their words and stuff like that. That's a huge problem as far as being anonymous, but I'd rather have freedom.
These attacks might occur, but sadly, what's certain is that Buffalo won't be the last.
Jeez, that threat. All right, guys, I hope you guys have a freaking fantastic Friday. I appreciate every single one of you guys. I know this is the first time I've been live in a long time. I'm just getting my bearings straight. I might start to go live in the mornings now, but we'll see. Again, I hope you guys have a great weekend. I'll probably have some videos coming out this weekend. I freaking love every single one of you guys. You guys are amazing people, and I appreciate you for giving me a reason to make this stuff. Hey, Tiger Man, what up? What up? I was just leaving. I hope you have a great one. I appreciate you. All right. Okay. All right. Bye.